to Weapons Education. This is a special video, very special. From day one, my mission statement was to do whatever I can to help tweak gun laws. Well, I went right to the source. Sit back, relax. I know it's a lengthy video, but this is very special. What I'm going to ask you to do is Google the name Sheriff Richard Mack, M-A-C-K. You may want to pause right now, do that, and say, oh, I just watched a couple of these videos. This guy's a nationally known spokesman for a sheriff, former sheriff from Arizona, a person who sued the federal government in 1994 when the Brady Bill was first passed by the federal government. He goes, that's unconstitutional. I'm going to sue you, Mr. President Clinton. And he did, and he won. He took it to the Supreme Court and won. What a story. Sheriff Richard Mack is by far the most influential law enforcement officer in the history of the United States to help tweak gun laws. Not only in the past when he sued the federal government to change the whole Brady Bill, he's going to talk about it, but also currently now what he's doing to pool all the sheriffs together in the United States to tweak gun laws. This man is a man who is very well spoken, he's very passionate, and he stands for the Constitution of the United States, and he's on our side. He wants us all to bear arms. He's pulling together sheriffs. Please go to the .org below and donate, because they need another $100,000 by January 15th or so. Anything you can put towards his cause to help change gun laws. He wants to soften gun laws in all states using the sheriffs. Very, very powerful. Enjoy the video. I know it's long. I'm very proud of this one. Welcome to Weapons Education. As promised, one of my mission statements from day one was to help change gun laws. And I have one of the most influential law enforcement officers. This man is the most influential law enforcement officer ever to live in the United States to change gun laws. Sheriff Richard Mack is with me. Sheriff, welcome, and thank you so much, sir, for being here on the set. This is exciting. This man travels, he's traveling the whole state of Florida right now, correct?
Yes.
And you're doing speaking engagements each night?
Yes.
Pretty much?
Yes.
And people pay good money to go watch you speak.
Well, whatever.
You know, this man sued the federal government. He sued the Clinton administration and won. Let's listen to the most influential law enforcement officer to help our gun rights, right from Mr. Sheriff Richard Mack's mouth and right to you for free. This is exciting. I'm going to just ask you right now, Sheriff.
Wait, this was for free?
Yeah,
Oh,
no, this is for free. Yeah.
All right, good job.
We're going to ask for some donations here at the end for your cause with the sheriffs. But Sheriff, first, I know that the viewers, they really want to know about when you sued the Clinton administration. Tell us.
Well, that really is a unique story. I have to admit that my wife had a big hand in it, because when I left the meeting with the Sheriff's Association in Phoenix, this is back in 1994, January 21st, 1994, we have a Sheriff's Association in Phoenix, and I'm at this meeting, but there's 3 strangers in the room. And turned out they were 3 agents of the BATF, and they were there by orders of the federal government to hand a document to each of us sheriffs that detailed what our marching orders would be in order to comply with the Brady Bill. Now, every sheriff there, and there's only 15 counties in Arizona, there were only 15 sheriffs. There were 12 sheriffs at the meeting. Every sheriff in that meeting was really outraged. I mean, they were ready to tar and feather these BATF agents. And they know it wasn't, you know, they were just the messengers. We knew it wasn't their fault, but we still didn't like what they were saying. Because they were saying that we had to conduct criminal background checks and mental history background checks on every citizen in our counties just for wanting to buy a handgun. And first of all, that's definitely an infringement, but it gets worse. And we had to pay for the whole thing. Our department's budget, our personnel, all our resources are dedicated to this federal law that we had no voice in the first place. There was no negotiation, there was no contract, there was no input from the sheriffs. the federal government just kind of moves in and says, you have to do this for us, and if you don't like it, we might arrest you. There was actually, this is the first time in history, that's why I say this is so unique, because this has never happened before. The federal government comes in and says, you'll do this for us, pay for it yourself, and if you don't like it, you're subject to a year in jail, a $10,000 fine, or both. And this is from the Clinton administration, and so I'm going, I don't think I'm going to do that. First of all, I was on the Phil Donahue show, and I was debating Sarah Brady and some other people on the show about this, and I said, plain and simply, the federal government cannot tell me what to do. They don't hire me, they can't fire me, they don't vote for me, and so I just said it's a simple matter of law and the 10th Amendment, which says the federal government is not above the states. In fact, quite frankly, the states form the federal government, not the other way around.
Exactly.
And so now the creature has gotten a little bit too big for its pants, and the states have got to put the federal government back in their place. And that's what I was trying to do. And so none of the sheriffs liked this, but none of the sheriffs wanted to do anything about it.
But you stood up and you actually filed a lawsuit?
I did.
So tell us.
So I went home from the meeting, and I had a 3-hour drive to brood and brood about all of this. I got home, and it hit me what I was going to do. Right before I'm walking in the house, I'm just going, oh my gosh, I'm going to sue my own government. I'm going to sue the Clinton administration. And for anybody to think, oh yeah, I'm thrilled with that. I can't wait to sue the Clintons. Nothing ever happens to anybody who crosses the Clintons, you know. And so I go in the house, and my wife's in there, and she hasn't seen me for a day and a half because I was in Phoenix at the meetings. And of course she comes up to give me a hug, and I just blurted it out. I said, I'm going to sue the Clinton administration, and it's going to cost us everything, and they're going to squash me like a little pumpkin seed.
And you can go to jail.
Yeah, and I could be going to jail. And so she's, of course, going, what are you talking about? And I said, seriously, I'm going to sue the Clinton administration over the Brady Bill. They're forcing me to violate my oath of office. They're forcing me to participate in a federal gun control scheme. And that's what Scalia called it in the Supreme Court. A federal gun control scheme. And I said, I can't go along with it. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to quit my job over this. But I said, I'm sure the federal government's really going to come after me, but I got to know what you think about this first. And she goes, well, I'm sure I don't understand this, but she goes, maybe this is why you were supposed to be sheriff. And so I said, I'm going to take that as a yes. And she kind of just shrugged and said, okay. But can you believe it? She didn't say anything negative.
Huh.
And so that's really where the decision was made. And the next day, this got even better. At that time, I wasn't a member of the NRA or any group at all. I wasn't a member of anything. No national group, no state group, nothing. So I had no backing from any national organization, but it came. Let me tell you this. Right when I'm thinking about this, what am I going to do? My undersheriff walks in the room and I go, Mike, you're a lifetime member of the NRA. He goes, yeah. And I said, do they have like a toll-free number you can call and get advice? And I said, I need some big-time advice. And he gave me the number. I called it, and I got passed around a whole bunch. And I almost got tired of it. I almost hung up. But anyway, I finally landed in the office of Richard Gardner. And Gardner, of course, is a lawyer for the NRA. And I told him who I was and what I wanted to do. And he said this. He said, Sheriff Mack, we've already been preparing the paperwork on this case, but we've been praying that someone like you would call. And I said, I'm the first sheriff to call? And he goes, yeah.
Wow.
Thank you. So I said, we're going to sue on the Second Amendment, right? And we're going to prove once and for all the Second Amendment stands for a God-given right to keep and bear arms and to self-protection. And he goes, Sheriff, you need to calm down. And I said, what? He goes, we're not even suing on the Second Amendment. And I said, so what case have you prepared then? I said, you're the NRA. That's what you do. You defend the Second Amendment. Even I know that. And he goes, no. He says, we don't have standing on the Second Amendment. He says, but we have an airtight case on the 10th Amendment. And I said, states' rights? And he goes, yes. And I said, well, let's do it. And he goes, quite frankly, the federal government has no authority to tell you to do anything. And so I smiled real big and I said, even better. And so we got started, and I hired my own lawyer. They recommended a Second Amendment lawyer out in Tucson, Arizona by the name of Dave Hardy. I hired him. He worked with the NRA lawyers, and on February 28th, 1994, the very day the Brady Bill took effect, my lawyers filed in federal district court in Tucson, Arizona, in the courtroom of one Judge John M. Roll. And if you remember his name, he was the federal district judge shot during the Congresswoman Gifford shooting in Tucson, Arizona on January 8th of this year. This was one of the greatest judges in American history. I wouldn't have been able to make it through this if it hadn't been for him. He sided with us every time the federal government tried some sort of legal shenanigan. He was on my side. They tried to remove me for standing. Judge Roll wouldn't hear of it. We filed for an injunction against them being able to arrest me. Janet Reno wrote a big old memo to the judge about how that wasn't lawful or possible. He sided with me. We got our injunction. Do you realize we got an injunction against the Clinton administration? And if you look at all the history of all the people that got injunctions against Clinton or sued Clinton for one thing or another, I was the only one to ever sue him on a non-sexual matter. Yeah.
This is awesome.
Yeah.
So you changed gun laws for all Americans. People don't realize Sheriff Richard Mack is the man because that lawsuit that you ultimately went to the Supreme Court and you won.
We won, and not only that, but there were 5 Brady bills. Most people don't know this. There were 5 Brady bills. Senator Metzenbaum from New York actually introduced Brady Bill 2 just 2 weeks after I filed my lawsuit. And at that time, I was all by myself. There was no other sheriff in the country that joined. Yeah, I know. And boy, was I glad when Sheriff Prince from Montana joined. He joined about 4 weeks later. And then Sheriff from Texas, Mississippi, Louisiana, Vermont, and Wyoming. There were 7 of us out of 3,100 that did this lawsuit. But our lawsuit ended up being part of the reason, in fact, a major part of the reason, why Brady Bills 2, 3, 4, and 5 were killed.
Awesome.
And never came back. So literally this lawsuit changed American history.
Thank you.
And preserved the Second Amendment.
Awesome. That is just an incredible story.
Yeah.
What can you say about the Obama administration?
Well, that's Obama administration is really fast and furious, aren't they?
That's a good way to
Let's
put
see,
it.
Fast and Furious, what is that? Well, Fast and Furious has probably been the biggest scandal in American history since Watergate. And the reason is because it involves murder.
Right.
Agent Brian Terry was murdered with guns that went to Mexican cartels that went to those cartels directly from the American government. No, I don't want to say American. It's not American. The Obama government.
Good way to put it.
And there's a big difference.
I know.
Okay, because he's not American, and I'm not talking about his birth certificate issue. I'm talking about his policies are not American. And so here we have Eric Holder, who now has committed perjury over this. So we not only have murder and perjury, but these guns going into Mexican cartels that they knew were going into Mexican cartels now has violated international law, and literally hundreds of people have been killed with those guns in northern Mexico cartel violence, and the blood of every one of those individuals is right on the hands and at the footsteps of the Obama administration. Eric Holder specifically. And so what did the Obama administration do? Oh, well, they took Melson, who was the director of ATF, and moved him to a different job. And they just kind of brushed all of this under the rug, you know. And the American press, CBS actually broke the story. And now Fox News has really been on top of it. But if you investigate this whole thing, it stinks to high heaven. And what did Barack Obama do when he was asked about it? He goes, oh, well, I didn't know about it.
They all lied.
It's your administration, Obama. You said you were going to be the most transparent president ever. Well, that was a lie. And you want to know what Fast and Furious was for?
Yeah.
The intent of Fast and Furious was to let those guns go down there, discover that these guns came from Arizona and New Mexico, gun shops, and then go, we've got to have more gun control. It was an effort, a backdoor, lying effort to promote more gun control in America. It blew up in their face, it didn't work, it failed, and then they go, oh, what do we do now? We've been found out.
A few weeks ago, I did a video saying Eric Holder needs to go to jail for perjury.
He does, and probably more, but definitely for perjury. And now we have 10 sheriffs in Arizona who called a press conference about a month ago and asked for Eric Holder to resign. If you want to know the truth, Mr. Holder, you should resign while the getting's good. Because if you can avoid all these other criminal charges that are pending out there for you, we investigated and spent $40 million trying to investigate Bill Clinton having an affair with Monica Lewinsky. This affair is 10 times worse, and the perjury committed by Eric Holder is 10 times more serious. And so now we have the Justice Department and the head law enforcement officer of the United States, Eric Holder, the Attorney General, who has committed perjury, and now he's trying to cover all this up and saying, oh, he didn't know either.
How about the whole Obama administration as a whole, their policies on the economy, on the recession, on jobs, and on the spending, the deficit? What's he doing in this country?
Well, plain and simply, look what Obama has done since he's been in office. The only talent he has shown in managing the economy is to spend more money. Make government bigger, increase taxes, increase the load on the American taxpayer, whether it's the rich or whoever. I don't care how you try to finagle that. It's still on the American taxpayer. You know, my son-in-law is the CFO for a company, a new company, a very good company, an international company, but it is new. And he was just complaining to me the other day. Do you know who their biggest partner is? The federal government. That's who they have to pay $600,000, $700,000 in taxes instead of using that money. Now last year they didn't pay any because they didn't have a profit. Now they're finally making a profit and they've got to give it all to the federal government. Wouldn't you love for them to create jobs with that $600,000 or $700,000? Instead of no, it goes to Washington D.C. bailouts, and it goes to people who should be bankrupt because the banks and AIG and Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac and all these other companies that should be bankrupt. Instead, we're saved by the taxpayer, and the CEOs are getting exorbitant multi-million-dollar bonuses while these other companies in our country are struggling because of the Obama administration doesn't know how to run business. And this is absolutely so destructive to our economy and to what's going on. I would say that if Obama gets reelected, then the American taxpayer is toast. No, let's get really serious. America is toast.
We can go bankrupt, I think.
Absolutely. We already are bankrupt.
I know, right.
And to continuously spend money we don't have. I find this so astonishing. For every dollar we spend today in the American government, in the Obama government, we borrow 43 cents. And so right now we send millions of dollars in foreign aid to other countries who don't even like us, who vote against us at the UN, which we shouldn't be a part of either, and they continuously do this and give money that we have to borrow to pay countries like Egypt and Syria and so on and so forth, and it just keeps going ridiculous. We borrow almost half of everything we spend in this country. Pretty soon that credit card's going to run out.
Thank you. So because of your lawsuit, you proved the federal government cannot tell sheriffs what to do.
Well, sheriffs or anybody in the state. And this is a quote. The decision was written by Justice Scalia. And it was a 5-4 split. I admit that right up front. But we still won.
You won.
We won. Okay? And again, you need to understand, this was the most important and vital, monumental 10th Amendment decision, perhaps in the history of our country. It says, and I quote, "We have held, however, that state legislatures are not subject to federal direction," end quote. Now, if we're not subject to federal direction, that means the president can't tell anyone in your state what to do. Okay? Not just the state legislature, but Scalia said, or the state officers, or any of those of their political subdivisions, which means cities, counties, school boards, or any other entity within your state. So no, he cannot commandeer law enforcement for federal bidding. Nobody in the federal government can do that. So the President of the United States cannot tell your state what to do. Cannot tell your governor, cannot tell your mayor, city council, county commissioners, or your sheriff.
Awesome.
If the president can't do that, then that means the United States Congress cannot do that. So if the United States Congress and the president cannot tell your sheriff or your state what to do, how did the EPA get that authority? Where did the EPA get the authority to do that? And in fact, in my ruling, Justice Scalia takes us through a little history lesson and explains how the EPA was ruled to be unconstitutional in the early 1970s. So what has happened that they've got so powerful today? We, the states and other local officials, have acquiesced and allowed this to happen. It is our job. In fact, James Madison said, we can safely rely on the disposition, now the disposition of the state legislatures to erect barriers against the encroachments of the national authority, end quote. Well, so it's actually our job as sheriffs, as state reps, as county commissioners, as governors, to erect barriers against the encroachments of the national authority or the federal government. And I maintain that ultimately it is your sheriff who will decide what is and what is not enforced in your county. So if the federal government comes in and does something against the Bill of Rights, against the Constitution, if the IRS comes in to confiscate property, if any other agency of the IRS, EPA, FDA, if FDA wants to come in and shut down an Amish farmer because they don't pasteurize their milk, and they're doing that now, they're raiding farmers who won't pasteurize their milk. Raw milk farmers are being attacked by our own government because they distribute what cows put out naturally. I can't believe this administration. I can't believe what we're doing in this country, and we've got to turn this around. My solution to turn this around is we take back freedom in America, sheriff by sheriff, county by county, state by state. We have a grassroots effort now going on to create constitutional sheriffs all across this country.
What is it .com?
It is actually a .org.
.org?
It's countysheriffproject.org.
It'll be below, and you're looking for donations.
We need donations because we want the sheriffs who are going to attend, and you can also look on our website and see the board of directors on our website. We have 17 sheriffs from across the country who all volunteered to be part of this movement, and they're on the CSPOA.org website. You can see the directors right there. CSPOA is Constitutional Sheriff Peace Officer Association. And so we're inviting some peace officers as well. We're inviting some sheriff candidates, but the actual sheriff, who is now a sheriff, we're going to pay for their way to get there.
That's the goal. That's why you want donations.
And we've determined it's going to cost about $1,000 per sheriff. So if you want to contribute $1,000 for your sheriff to get there, we will invite your sheriff. Okay? And yes, the entire day of January 30th in Las Vegas will be dedicated to creating a constitutional sheriff in your county so that you will have a sheriff defending your constitutional and God-given rights.
I love it. So this is the way to change gun laws, for the sheriff.
Absolutely. How do we stop that? I love that question. How do we stop gun control in America? One sheriff at a time.
There you go.
Because if they come in to take your guns, the sheriff says, I'm sorry, this guy's a member of my posse and he's required to be armed and I said so, now get out of here. Basically, this is what the sheriffs are going to say to the federal government. There's just a few things you're not going to do here anymore.
I love it.
Yeah. And you know who gets hurt? Nobody. It keeps this whole movement peaceful. It might hurt some of the federal agents' feelings a little bit. Yeah, they might throw their popsicle down in the dirt and cry home to mama. But that's all right. They're going to survive. But that's why I am so convinced that this will work. Because if you get your sheriffs on board the freedom train and the holy cause of liberty, as Patrick Henry called it, then this whole entire movement to take our country back will be extremely effective, but also peaceful. Peaceful, and that's what I'm after.
Please donate. This is the #1 man in the United States who will help change gun laws. This is the man right here. I promise from day one, That's one of my mission statements, is to help change gun laws. This is the main man in the United States, Sheriff Richard Mack. Sheriff, you've got 3 books available for sale. Would you please discuss each book? This one in particular, really.
Yeah, this one's probably the most amazing. It's the littlest book I've ever written. And it's called The Victory for State Sovereignty. And what this is, they're like $3 or 3 for $5. Real easy to get them. You should always keep one in your pocket and be able to hand one out to your favorite public official. Keep it right next to your pocket constitution. Always be ready to hand one of these out. But it's the highlighted version of my Supreme Court victory.
Awesome.
And and one of my favorite quotes from this, I got to do this one. I don't need to read it.
Yeah.
But the Constitution protects us from our own best intentions. End quote. That's from this decision. Can you imagine the improvement in America if every congressman, every senator, every governor, every sheriff knew that one principle? Your county commissioners? The Constitution protects us from our own best intentions. Wow.
Incredible.
Yeah.
What's this one all about?
Now this is, I wrote this 3 years ago. It came out 3 years ago next month. The County Sheriff, America's Last Hope. And Joe Arpaio's on the back, Sheriff Arpaio from Maricopa County in Phoenix, and he gives an endorsement back here, and he says, you know, our 1994 lawsuit, our lawsuit against the Clinton administration, against the Brady Bill, proved once and for all that the federal government is not our boss, and that the sheriff is the ultimate authority in your county. You know why? Because he's the only law enforcement official who is elected by, for, and of the people. And he doesn't report to another bureaucracy or to a bureaucrat, and he's not a bureaucrat. He reports right to the power source, we the people.
Incredible. I like the title of this one. Go ahead.
Now, have you ever heard that before?
That's great. Read it.
People think that I made that up, but you know, Charlton Heston is famous for saying, from my cold, dead hands. Well, so I said it another way, from my cold, dead fingers. And that's the reason I wrote that book, is because you know, I wasn't even a gun owner until I was elected sheriff. I owned my first gun when I was elected sheriff. And I was a cop before that, but that was just department issue that I had. I was never into guns, but I've always been into freedom. And then I ran into the fact that freedom and gun rights are the same. And throughout history, there's only been maybe 2 groups of people that have never been allowed guns. And that is slaves and conquered nations. And which one are they trying to make us in America today? You know what? Plain and simply, this book spells it out. Gun control in America is against the law. And that's what the Second Amendment is. Whether you like it or not, that's what it is. We are free. And I'm proud to be from Arizona, where we have constitutional carry, no permits. And that's exactly what every state should be. If I want to carry a gun open or concealed, that's my business, it's my right. And the rest of you who don't like it, well, move to China or Japan where they don't allow it.
SheriffMack.com, correct?
Correct.
Where you buy these books.
Yes.
I'll put the link below. Now, one more question is, you're running for Congress. Tell us.
Yes, I went to a meeting in Texas and I didn't know, all I knew is that it was a GO meeting, and GO is G-O-O-H. 3 O's. Get out of our house. And these were some friends of mine who were very supportive of me and came to a meeting, a tea party. I speak at tea parties all across the country. And they came to one of my tea party rallies there in Texas. And they said, come to our meeting this Saturday. Well, I didn't know it was a nomination meeting for GO. And I got nominated. And so I'm the Republican candidate running against Lamar Smith in District 21. And if you don't mind, progressive Republicans being in Congress and who have been there way too long, then go ahead and vote for him. But if you want somebody new who believes in the Constitution, and kind of, you know what, if you want Ron Paul and his beliefs to have some backup, then you want to vote for me.
Excellent. We're going to talk about Ron Paul here in a moment in a separate video. Thank you so much for the interview. It was
Thanks,
a
Tom.
pleasure, sir. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Enjoy. Bye-bye.